Loving what the subject of our local year is better than smart, small than big, and simple. Simple is better than complex. And in the footnotes, again, 5-point type with Helvetica as the font. Personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract. I like Helvetica because it's neutral. It is a font that doesn't have the little shoes on the letters, or you could say the little blades. Those are they're called serifs, serif, and a serif is a little attachment. Now, when government people write their laws, and there are many hundreds, maybe tens of hundreds of thousands of pages of laws that government people endorse, write, create, or get some legislature to sign off on, they often have serifs, and that's because those words are compelling and compulsory. They are coercion, and they are displays of power. Power is what runs the world today, if you haven't heard. And so I say, well, in what I have to offer, it is really more about grace and service and thinking about the other, right? Which is what Christ admonishes his children to do. Think about the other first. Put the other person first, and you will be doing what I have done for my children on the cross and in my ministry, my 3-year ministry on the earth. That's what Christ did. He was all about the other, all about the sick and the suffering and the poor, and those who were starved spiritually as well as in their bodies. He helped them. And so what we argue for on the David Toulis show with personal is better than corporate and physical is better than abstract in the 5-point type is the voluntary society, the free society, the anarcho-capitalist society. You could even say a theocentric or theonomic society where the law, right, the basis of equity is understood. It's an external standard, and it's not internal to any person. There are no sovereign individuals in that country. There is only one sovereign, that's God. And all the people in the country, whether they are magistrates and judges or businessmen or landowners or farmers or parents or students, they have one God, and they don't claim sovereignty for themselves in any way at all. They're if they have authority, it is derivative and it is assigned. It's not one that they have obtained by the use of words, pages and pages of words that have the serifs, which compel people to do something, compel them to pay a tax, compel them to fill out forms, compel them to enter into bizarre relationships with others, like compulsory insurance, compel them to yield rights that God gave them. Right? That's what the state does. The modern state is the preeminent example of organized force. And your idealists writing in the 1700s and 1800s and some before all thought that was really the way humanity should go. We should evolve in the direction of the modern state, the total welfare authoritarian mercy state, right? The state with its democratic capitalism, its corporatism, and its gigantic bureaucratic welfare system. That's what the state should be. That's man at his very best. And we have reflection now here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County on the David Toulis show to see how well it's gone. Has the experiment succeeded, as Jeremy Bentham and other theoreticians, Marsilius, right, writing in the 1200s, Marsilius of Padua, the Catholic theologian who wanted the work of the gospel to be purely private. That was his idea, the privatization of Christianity from Marsilius. I think it's about the 1200s, maybe the 1300s. And he led many others. Thomas Hobbes following in his steps in Leviathan, the minister, the English minister, and many others. That the gospel is private, and what we have in the public realm is the great ones, the great committees, such as those who have their open letter this morning in the Chattanooga Times Free Press, recommending how to obtain equity in public schools, a system which is designed to be inequitable. It can't be. You can't expect to plant a turnip seed and get a watermelon, right? You're going to get a turnip. And so what we've planted with public education, as it's called, really just public schools, public factory schools, what we've planted is something that we've been harvesting for decades, and we have we have still, though, the idea that if we just rearrange things in the proper order, if we have the right sequence of words in a 25-page Apex report, we just rearrange our words in a new way, we can organize ourselves. We can reorganize ourselves here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County in a better way. And we don't have to worry about the major principles of human nature that we are overlooking, right? If you have a collectivist or even socialistic perspective, as this organization does, sharing in ideas that the best of us have, right? The best of us here in Chattanooga share these ideas. Ministers of the gospel, right, who should be all about liberty and freedom, they share in it. Business people who prosper on capitalism, who prosper on industrialization and the selling of cars and other things like that. People who are involved in real estate, who know the damage caused to that market by regulations for housing construction and stormwater runoff rules. People who know the evils and high costs and shortages connected with state intervention. They're all in favor of what's proposed here. Then that is that we have equity in public education, that somehow we have the fruit of the marketplace without the marketplace, that we have the ascendancy of opportunity, the gaining of opportunity for more and more children, but we don't free the market. We want freedom in results, but we don't want freedom in process. And that is a serious problem I propose. David Toole is here. The number is 800-8949. Now, maybe you want to chip in. I had a quick call with Rhonda Thurman, and she's not at all convinced by this letter, and she's surprised. She indicates she's sort of somewhat ashamed of the people who signed it as ones who should know better. And she asks in the story she's interviewed by the Chattanooga Times Free Press this morning, and I think she says, well, where are these people going to be specific? Where are the problems exactly that in which we're inequitable? Which schools are demonstrative of the grievance, right, that these people are locating in their analysis. Jared Bigham says, I think it's important to be clear, he's telling the TFP here. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to anything. A focus on equity has been embedded in the 2.0 work and the work of multiple organizations that signed the letter. It is important, he goes on to say, to put a stake in the ground as organization and business leaders, parents, and educational institutions that shows we are committed to the work as a community, that we support the school district and we support aggressively addressing the issue of equity. Well, people here are not willing to break out of the paradigm, right? They're in a paradigm and they're not willing to escape it, because if they make the step away from it, as you, my listener, have, they're going to be viewed as uncivil, as somehow uncooperative, maybe even selfish, right? If you're not taking part in the collective will, if you're not taking part in the collective program, then clearly you have a hostile intent. You're not really sympathetic to the goals that we are espousing. Yes, you may have a free market analysis and propose that a free market work, but isn't the free market one that works by self-interest? How can self-interest ever generate equity? And so the people who should know better, right? Who are people who've read books, right? Some of them have read one book, and so they are leaders. Some who signed this letter have read 5 books, and no doubt they are perhaps prophets. A man who's read 5, of course, is that higher standing, and yet they still sign this letter. People from Rick Hitchcock, committee member, Kelly Fitzgerald, engaged citizen, and I'm looking further on the list here. They are ones who don't want to be outside the heated room, right? There's a room that we're all in this together. There's a heater in the middle of it. And if you're not in this room agreeing to share, we're going to have a shared economy with compulsion, of course, the hidden engine that makes it all work, right? If you don't have, if this committee, if these 130 people didn't have compulsion as the machinery that drove the stove in the middle of the room that kept them all warm, then they would have to resort to something else. They would have to resort to trust in people like you. They would have to say, well, we really don't trust other people, but we're going to change our minds, and we're going to say, we need to end public education. We need to end the experiment. and make Chattanooga and Hamilton County a free trade zone. It needs to be a free trade zone entirely, that we end the taxation. We're going to talk in a short time with a county commissioner, and who's seeking re-election, and we're going to ask about the $435 million 2017 budget, half of which comes from the good people in Washington and in Nashville. That's a $203.3 million. How can we have self-direction? How can we have equity when we don't make these decisions ourselves? And we have innumerable hands, from foundations to think tanks to lobbies to number crunching, data miners, and many others. People who supply meals, contracts, books, cleaning supplies, all the hangers on that cartel. They're all there wanting to serve, right? They're wanting to serve you. They're wanting to serve the children, and yet they're all making a profit. The markup on public school sales is tremendous. You make a building for a business, and you're going to spend $30 a square foot. You make a building for a public school, and you're going to be collecting $110 a square foot. And that's because there is a magic connected with the state. The state has a magic. The state it's very important. It has to be the absolute best quality pavement. The rebar has to be the absolute best quality rebar. And the brick, the glass, the fixtures, the doors, the door handles, all has to be just the absolute best quality. And so the markup is just tremendous. It's very, very high. And so because your children are worth it, right? Your children are worth the best. And you'll pay your superintendent $200,000 or $250,000 a year, and have him for his lifetime on the state retirement dole through Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System, TCRS. He'll be involved in that. If he puts enough time in on the system, he's going to get that dole too. And so you don't realize how padded this whole thing is. It's designed to be padded. It is a jobs program for the middle class. A jobs program for the leisure class, with their 3-month vacations and their dopey in-service training programs. It's all about the form and the ritual, the custom. We go through these forms. Yeah, you spend 3 days in a series of lectures, and you could have gotten it all in a 2-page essay with a few footnotes. It could have all been boiled down, or a good lecture. But it's all stretched out. Just like getting your bachelor's degree in education, the whole thing is stretched out to fill the time and to make it seem important. It's very, very full of self-importance. This educational enterprise, it was state-centered educational enterprise, self-justifying, labor-creating, stultifying, intellectually dead process. Maybe I'm wrong. The number is 800-8949, 800-8949, brought to you by Euronews.com. Make sure you go to East Ridge Online News today. East Ridge Online News has a couple of stories. One in which I'm put in my place. I'm told to sit down and shut up by the city court judge in East Ridge. Sit down, Mr. Toulis. You have no business to say anything in this matter. Who are you? Do you have a law degree? Are you an attorney? Do you practice law? Of course, the answer is no to all of those. Who are you to help this person? You have no right to be here. And to find out what that's about, Hilton orders Toulis to sit down in traffic case. Sit down, Toulis. Get out of my sight. You have no business here. You're an interloper, an interrupter, and you are presumptuous. Get out and sit down. So that's EastRidgeOnlineNews.com. That's EastRidgeOnlineNews.com. There's also a brief analysis. I was going to give that analysis to Dick Cook, the editor, last week, but I had in front of me a kind of a longer review that I had sent to members of the city council in East Ridge, similar to one that I have sent to city council members in Chattanooga, describing the claims of the statute in Title 55 on their police operations regarding transportation. And I said, well, if I'm going to write an article for East Ridge Online News and make a contribution there, it really can't be 2,000 words. So I finally got it out down to about 500 words for Dick Cook. And it's not all that's there. It's not the whole issue, but it's the best. And if you go there, you can read my analysis on the question. What is the question that police officers in Red Bank need to ask? And also police officers in Chattanooga and in East Ridge. I'm talking here about East Ridge Online News, and also in Hamilton County, because those are the jurisdictions that I've given a copy of my notice to. The governor has gotten a copy as well, and David Perkey, his commissioner of safety, I sent him a certified copy as well of this 20-page analysis of the statute. Just making notice of the statute, just telling what the statute has, what the definitions are, and what the scope is, the scope of authority by law enforcement. And it's much more limited than they realize, right? Much more limited than they are willing to admit. And this is David Twillis. Make sure you join us Saturday and Sunday at the 36th annual Chattanooga Waterfront Triathlon. The Waterfront Triathlon 2-day event, Saturday and Sunday, will be broadcasting at the expo both days. It's going to be a huge event. Make sure that you talk with Sam Jordan, our sports guy. We'll be broadcasting on a bicycle on the day of the race. That's on Sunday. We'll be there with our wonderful yellow Hummer as well. The eye grabber on the roadway. I travel about in that. It's been great fun to learn to drive such a giant machine as that. It's a giant machine, and I'm glad that you are making note of the triathlon Saturday and Sunday. Now, I wanted to just which way to go? You want to talk more about the school situation? Is that what you'd like to do? Well, there's more there, of course, but maybe you have something to contribute. The number is 800-8949. That's 800-8949. You can call me and say something. There is another listener. Of course, he and I will both listen to what you have to say. And but maybe you have a question. If you have a question, or if you have a problem you want to tell me about, I love hearing about people's problems, and I'm willing to listen in detail. If I think that the other listener will not mind too much, we'll listen in detail to what you have to say, and particularly about Chattanooga Public Schools, Hamilton County Public Schools. There's a story in Chattanooga.com which I found remarkable about City Court. Now, I've written some in some detail here in Hamilton County about what are called corporation courts, and I just wanted to mention to you. One of them is at East Ridge News Online, and it's about the East Ridge City Court. And I'm not belaboring that particular venue in my very critical analysis, but I do offer it as typical of corporation courts in general. The story in Chattanooga.com is of an event that I had not realized was on its way, tending toward abolition. Now, the word abolition, I think, is important, and I'm an abolitionist on several important points. I'm an abolitionist on the right to life. Babies should all be born. No baby should be slain, and the state should use its police powers to maintain public order and health, safety, and welfare of each and every resident considered as a whole. And so if you're considering all residents as a whole and wanting to benefit them in the particular, each in his particular body and soul, well, that means that you have to be a pro-life state. You cannot have the killing of babies in Tennessee. It has to be brought to an end. And you, my listener, need to do better than just being pro-life. Being pro-life is not enough. It's just not enough. Now, there's abolition in the wind in Chattanooga on the point of City Court. And the story came out Tuesday, and it indicates in Chattanooga.com that the voters may have a chance in a plebiscite to eliminate it. And the story points out that the duties of this court have been diminishing, starting with the loss of criminal cases that ranged up to murder. And that was at the time when Judge Walter Williams was on the bench. And I believe it was also the time where Chattanooga versus Davis came out, and also Chattanooga versus Myers earlier, indicating that municipal corporations are extraordinarily limited in their authority there. They have civic authority, civil authority. And the only person who's really discussed this is Basil Marceau. Basil Marceau, who is running for governor. You may have seen a sign or two from Basil. And his platform is a very, very interesting man. His platform is not on these kinds of issues, which is where I would say he can be more valuable. But moving the border, I don't know if you've seen his proposal, but he wants to move the Georgia state line, or the Tennessee state line with Georgia, north I think a couple of miles. Well, the story indicates that the court's duties have been diminishing. Parking cases were removed when Carter took over the parking and set up a payment and appeal system. The court hears traffic and environmental cases. But because of city courts around the state, we have a police state. The police state cannot operate with a high volume of processing people under the abusively operating commercial driver's statute without city courts. City courts enable that system to happen with the least friction and the least cost. I think it should be shut down. Leave it to listening to the radio. Some important messages now.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
The man who was shot by